Hey guys, welcome back to another Destiny 2 video. In today's video, I'm showcasing a Solar Titan well build that excels in every aspect of PvE. As far as I'm concerned, this is the best Solar well build currently in Destiny 2, and while you can rock something similar on Warlock, which I'll get into a bit later, it absolutely shines on Titan. Before we get into the build, be sure to like and subscribe for more Destiny 2 content and build guides like this, and be sure to vote in the poll that launches with this video on what class should be next. Given that Titans had a brief run of the channel, I'm only limiting it to Warlock and Hunter in the hopes to show you guys the few builds that I have planned for those two classes and show how truly broken some of them can be in PvE. So without further delay, let's get into the video. Starting off, we are on Bottom Tree Hammer, and we're utilizing our Sunspot perk through Sol Invictus to enable us to have near infinite ability regen on top of consistent healing for our class. We're going to be taking full advantage of both of these in our perks today, and you'll see why in a sec. For our class Exotic, we're rocking the Path of Burning Steps. Now, if you recall, in my very first video I ever made on these, I said it was pretty underwhelming simply because why rock something like this when in PvP it doesn't really have any greater effect than Sun Warrior would naturally grant you, and in PvE the damage bonus was nice, but Phoenix Cradle really carried all Solar Titan builds with Warmind cells in the near infinite ability spam and Warmind production that Path of Burning Steps simply couldn't compete with in a sense, although for niche Solar builds it did take an advantage. I'm proud to say that with the new Solar Elemental Well mods, that Path of Burning Steps is now one of the best Solar exotics for Titans in PvE. Again, while it might not have the benefit of sharing Sun Warrior with your allies, which provides near constant ability regen and increasing the overall duration of that effect, its 35% weapon buff is hard to overlook, and when combined with other well mods, it's extremely potent. Onto our mods. On our helmet, we're rocking Bountiful Wells. Essentially, every well we spawn now spawns a second well with this mod. In short, we're doubling our well production. And this works with every single way that you can actually implement well spawns through modding, whether it's melee Wellmaker or elemental ordnance, explosive Wellmaker. This will double all of them. I'm also rocking rocket launcher ammo finder as we are taking advantage of Ascendancy for this build, so having extra ammo spawn is greatly appreciated. Also rocking Ashes to Assets just because getting our super back is always appreciated. If you want to switch these around, say use dual finders, dual Ashes to Assets, or whatever other mods you want to use for this build, say hands-on as it is a seasonal mod, go for it. Next up, onto our gauntlets. Our main mod here is Well of Ordnance, as picking up an elemental well replenishes grenade energy, allowing for increased grenade regen, especially combined with Bountiful Wells for double well creation. As per usual, anything that regens grenade energy through mods is about 20 to 25% of your ability gained back. But again, with 2 wells, this bumps it up to around 50% grenade energy off of 1 spawn event for a well. If you want to switch some mods around and also use grenade kickstart, you totally can help you get your grenade even faster, but with how often we're going to be getting it through our natural ability regen through Sun Warrior, as picking up the double spawned elemental wells, I feel it's a bit overkill, but you totally can. I'm also rocking rocket launcher loader, as again we're taking advantage of Ascendancy, so having this increased reload is greatly appreciated. Onto our chest piece, I'm rocking elemental ordnance. In short, it enables our grenade kills to spawn elemental wells. This is a fantastic way, and you can kind of see what this build is actually striving for. As we get a kill with our grenade, it spawns a well. Bountiful Well adds a second well onto that, and picking up both of those gives us additional grenade energy on pickup, around 20 to 25% each, enabling almost half of our grenade back to us instantly, all on top of increased regen through Sun Warrior. As far as other perks, I'm also rocking dual rocket launcher reserves, once again to help take advantage of Ascendancy. Onto our exotic legs, the Path of Burning Steps. I'm using Font of Might, as with its newly acquired and heavily deserved buff, picking up an elemental well buffs weapon damage by 25% for 10 seconds, matching that well type. So 25% buff when we pick up a elemental well for solar weapon. Normally this duration is a bit of a hindrance, but with the sheer amount of wells we're spawning, this build has no problem at all keeping those 10 seconds constantly refreshed. In addition, Font of Might also stacks with the 35% buff acquired through Path of Burning Steps by ×4 Firewalker, so the damage output from any solar weapon is going to be absolutely insane. So in this video, you see I'm mainly focusing around SUNSHOT and Ascendancy. If you want to rock something like Sleeper or Vex Mythoclast, you totally can, and the effect will be the exact same, just overall insane damage, as we're rocking a near constant 25% buff with a near constant 35% buff. And these do stack. Now for the elephant in the room, no, Sun Warrior does not stack with Path of Burning Steps, as if it did, the damage output would be absolutely insane, and this would be the most broken build in the entire game. I will point out though, while the damage of Sun Warrior does not stack, the health regen proc from Soul Invictus and the ability regen when you do enter and pick up Sun Warrior, and the ability regen when you enter a Sunspot and do pick up Sun Warrior is still capped. That additional buff that you do get for weapon damage just doesn't carry over. Finally, onto our mark, we have Explosive Wellmaker. This effectively allows our explosions to spawn elemental wells, which Bountiful Wells then adds onto and spawns a second. This can be spawned in through any kind of multi-kill. Essentially, we're going to be utilizing explosions of SUNSHOT or a rocket launcher in order to actually have this procced, but it enables, once again, extremely effective well production through Bountiful Wells. I'm also rocking Withering Heat, as it's a nice perk for higher end content with a lot of champions, and even seasonal content like Astral Alignment, where champions are fairly prevalent, causing any kind of damage with your solar ability, so your grenade or your melee weakens champions for a short duration, and with this adding on to a 25 and 35% weapon buff, you will absolutely melt champions with primaries. And something like Ascendancy, which has gotten a huge buff recently, is going to one-shot near everything with all three of these. As for our weapons, the only requirement on my end is Sunshot, as in my opinion, it's the best solar primary in the game for explosive and solar-based builds like this, especially with its catalyst acquired. Not only will it benefit from Font of Might and Firewalker at the same time, but it can also generate wells extremely easily through Explosive Wellmaker. I do want to point out though, if Sunshot isn't your thing, Tiku's Divination is always a good example, and there's a ton of other weapons that can also use Firefly in order to also proc Explosive Wellmaker and take advantage of those effects. For our heavy, we're using the new Pinnacle Rocket Launcher, Ascendancy. Now you might be wondering why it took so long for this season's Pinnacle weapon to make an appearance in a build video, and initially it's because it sucked. Something like Chain Reaction was already shined out by something like Salvager Salvo, which was way easier and a special weapon, so you could afford to just kind of throw out ammo and kill a bunch of ads. Whereas with a heavy weapon, even with dual reserves, scavs, and finders, you still had to conserve your ammo quite a bit. But Bungie agreed that this weapon was underperforming and recently gave it a pretty huge buff with Explosive Light. And this single perk is why we're taking advantage of it today. Explosive Light got a huge damage increase, as before it was basically outmatched by anything that had Vorpal weapon on it, but now it's doing absolutely insane damage, and when we combine this with a 25% buff from Font of Might, as well as a 35% buff that then stacks on top from Path of Burning Steps, and taking on the debuff that we can get with champions, this is absolutely insane in those perfect scenarios. And even in somewhere where you're just simply shooting it, as long as you have Explosive Light, it does insane damage. Now I do want to point out, if there are a lot of ads in the activity and you do want to take advantage of something like Chain Reaction, you totally can, but Explosive Light also increases the projectile blast radius, so in truth, Explosive Light is the way to go, hands down, as it overflows the magazine when you get a multi-kill, essentially killing 3 combatants or so with a single shot, enables the next magazine that you reload to have 2 shots in it. Now this is always incredible for something like Ad Clear, as having 2 instant shots with a rocket launcher basically spells death for anything that isn't a major, but for bosses and especially champions and higher end content, having 2 rockets to fire back to back is absolutely insane, especially when both can take advantage of Explosive Light. If you want to use other weapons though, something like Vex Mythoclast or Sleeper Simulant would be fantastic for something like this. Same with Tico's for all you bow lovers out there. Plus, with our mark having 7 energy left, even with Explosive Wellmaker, you can definitely use something like Particle Deconstruction and get that full 40% debuff with linear and regular fusion rifles, especially Sleeper Simulant, which can take full advantage of the 25 and 35% buff that's found in this class. Now really quick, that pretty much does it for the Titan end of this. As far as other weapons in your kinetic slot, you can really use whatever you want. I use a Heritage just because Reconstruction Recombination is way too good of a weapon combination to pass up. Now moving on to Warlocks, your build is the exact same. I was going to make a separate video on this, but I felt that they were so similar that I might as well just combine them into one. Even though Titans did win out the vote for the video, I'm kind of just throwing this in on the end, just so I don't make essentially a repeat video for a different class. I'll get into some slight mod variations in a second, but I'd recommend the exact same distribution, but a few different exotics to recommend. Starting off, we are on Bottom Tree Dawnblade. We're going to be taking advantage of the change given to Igniting Touch. Essentially, now when we strike a combatant, it causes them to deal burn damage. When they die, they explode, and they spread that burn to other combatants. Again, the build is more or less the exact same. There really aren't too many differences to it. I will go into some few niche mods if you want to have some cool effects with it, but it's nothing too crazy. First off, with our exotic armor is Dawn Chorus. Essentially, your daybreak projectiles cause targets to burn on contact and do more damage, and all of your burn effects last longer, and you gain a small amount of melee energy each time one of your burns damages a target. This is really good with bottom tree Dawnblade, as that melee effect can then spread, explode, spread to more adds, and repeat this effect over and over and over again, essentially enabling you a great way to get your grenade back through the mods listed, as well as your melee energy back through this exotic armor itself. Next up for my pick is FELWINTER'S Helm. Powered melee final blows create a burst of energy that weakens nearby targets. Finishers and final blows against more powerful targets increase the radius of the burst and lengthen the weakening effect. This is essentially a debuff and suppressing effect that acts in PvE against targets, and given that all of our abilities now can proc this explosive damage, FELWINTER'S Helm can also proc this as well. And you can see it doesn't just stop after the first enemy has died and that explosion is produced, it links up after every single enemy. And as long as that enemy is burning, this will then take effect. And it's absolutely crazy to see this go off in a huge group of adds in PvE, as again, it spreads that weakening effect all throughout that entire group. And the higher health and more powerful targets you finish with it, the greater that radius becomes. The final exotic I would recommend you use is Necrotic Grip, as the burn explosion and poison effect both stack and spread at the same time, meaning a simple melee can clear an entire room full of adds with little to no effort at all. Once again, these all provide a unique effect onto the already chaining explosive effect found on bottom tree Dawnblade, and it's really cool to experiment with all three of them. As far as the mods go, there really aren't any major changes. One thing I would recommend is if you're looking to have a cool niche effect with Dawn Chorus, rock something like Supercharged, Elemental Charge, and Striking Light, enabling you to get near constant melee regeneration, and when you are charged with light and actually get that melee kill, you can spawn orbs of power for your teammates. But once again, I feel that the best thing that you can do is just rock the exact same build. But that's it for today, guys. Let me know what you thought of the build down below, as well as any future suggestions for build videos in the future. This build is incredibly fun and honestly competes with Warmind Cells for my favorite solar build on Titan and Warlock. And again, if you want to swap out a few mods, say Well of Ordnance for something like Wrath of Rasputin and actually taking advantage of basic Warmind Cells with this solar build, you can totally do that as well. So I encourage you to mess around with this, give it a try on both Titan and Warlock, and see what you like best. This build is absolutely crazy in PvE, as you can see in the background gameplay, and in high density ad activities like Gambit, Strikes, and Astral Alignment, this build truly shines. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching the video. I appreciate any and all feedback down in the comments below. If you like what you saw today, be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a good one.